If you're trying to determine whether or not you need wedding programs or not, my recommendation is to create an outline for your day. And an outline of the wedding ceremony is another vital piece of information. You're going to need that regardless. You need to have some type of order of service for the day. Your officiant needs it, your wedding coordinator need that. So just start with an outline first.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Hello, hello. This is Ruby from RubyBrewer-Watkins.com, where I help couples get family and friends together to celebrate them in one place, their wedding celebration, and I do that with wedding invitations. So I offer this at a full service tier, and this is from custom design to mailing, along with those day of details. We're talking place cards, seating charts, welcome signs, table numbers, you name it. And so today I actually want to do this is like part two of the topic on wedding programs. I had did another topic on wedding programs while I was literally in the midst of assembling, and I just hopped on and did a quick audio on wedding programs and determining if whether or not you would need them. So I'm going to do this a part two because I made a few updates and I think it's important to touch on this topic. Um, Wedding programs are actually often seen as a traditional aspect of a wedding ceremony, but in today's modern world, many couples question their necessity. Some may view them as an unnecessary expense, while others may wonder if their guests will even read them. So, much of the decision has to do with the style of the wedding and the personality of the couple, right? That's how, in most cases, you can determine whether or not you need them. And they can serve a really important purpose beyond simply listing the order of events. Wedding programs can come in many printed forms, shapes, and sizes. So just remember one of these things. I hear this often. I'm a part of quite a few communities where we help out other couples and brides. And one of the things I hear often, I hear this a lot because I'm in the world of stationery, it's just a piece of paper, right? Well, as with any type of social stationery that needs to communicate, it is more than just a piece of paper. And then most will also say, since the ceremony is only 30 minutes, 45 minutes long, it's like, oh, we don't need them, right? Um, if your wedding ceremony will be more than 30 minutes long, I recommend reconsidering the need. And I'm going to give you a few pointers as well to help you decide. The ceremony is the very moment that you and others have been waiting for. And so it's like everything leading up to that point, and everything happens so fast. And so, what that program can do for you is provide valuable information to your guests, such as the names of the wedding party and family members, special traditions or rituals included in the ceremony, and even the meaning behind certain aspects of the wedding. And so, I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth and explore the reasons why you may or may not need wedding programs for your upcoming wedding. So, if you're trying to determine whether or not you need wedding programs or not, my recommendation is to create an outline for your day. And an outline of the wedding ceremony is another vital piece of information. You're going to need that regardless. You need to have some type of order of service for the day. Your officiant needs it, your wedding coordinator need that. So just start with an outline first. And then once you devise the outline, you can then decide if this is helpful for your guests to know with a printed wedding program. Okay, so here's some reasons how you can probably omit a printed program. So I'm going to give you four reasons on how wedding programs may not be necessary. Number one, if your wedding ceremony will be less than 30 minutes and brief, you may not need a program. If you have very little to no readings, very few songs, and you have a small or literally no bridal party, and then in that case, you may not need a wedding program unless there is some information that you want to share that you find will be really helpful for your guests to know, some type of small inclusion with some beautiful artwork or just information about the two of you, something really nice. You still can have it, but if you're trying to determine it and just kind of check some things off your list, those are my 4 pointers I'm going to give you. Okay. If it's going to be less than 30 minutes, you have very little to no readings, very few songs, if any at all, maybe just the one you have coming down the aisle. And if you have no bridal party or just maybe one or two participants, then you don't need one. Okay. And here are some reasons why you may want to consider a printed program. Okay. If your wedding program will be at least 30 minutes or longer, then you may want to consider a printed program. If you plan on having a bridal party and any participants, we're not just talking about bridesmaids and groomsmen here, or ushers, usherettes. We're talking about parents, flower girls, ring bearers, you name it. Any type of participant in your wedding, you may want to consider a printed program. If you're going to include multiple readers, primary prayers and blessings, if there's blending of multiple religions, multicultural and interfaith, you may want to consider a wedding program. If you're having live musicians, any type of orchestra, singers, that is something you definitely would want to have in print as well, so people can follow along, and especially if you're going to have multiple songs. So there's a difference there, right? You got a little bit more that's going to happen within that 30 to 45 minutes. And even some wedding ceremonies can last up to an hour. And even in those cases, then a wedding program is literally almost a necessity at that point, in my opinion. And that's my professional opinion, especially if guests are going to be sitting there. You want them to follow along so they understand that there are still an order of events happening. And they just, after 30 minutes, they're wondering what's going on. I'm still here, right? And hear what your guests, everyone's saying, they're going to throw your programs away, and I want to touch on that. Here's what your guests will do, what they tend to do with your wedding programs. They will, yes, you're going to have them printed, and yes, you're going to make that determination. Maybe you're not going to have them printed, but if you have them printed, here's what your guests will do with them. We've seen guests use the programs to keep for themselves. Okay. We also seen them use it to keep themselves cool, use them as fans, in some areas that may be warm or unusually warm. Some of them, like I said before, they'll keep their program as a memento. Many guests will also leave it on their seats. Yes, I'm just going to state the obvious. Yes, there will guests who will leave it on their seats and possibly even toss it. And that is okay. It's not okay, but it's not okay. Just remember, there will be many things that your guests will toss on the day of your wedding, right? From the programs to the food. You just have to decide what matters to you. Is it important that you communicate to your guests what's happening on your day? Yes. After the ceremony is over, that concludes it, right? You have informed your guests. Most guests, if they're designed really beautifully, will keep your programs, and then some will just leave them behind, and that's fine, right? It's not going to make up the majority, but it will happen. The same happens with your food. The same happens with your cake, your favors. People toss them. It's just you deciding if that's something you want or not. Okay. And here's something I want to remind you. You don't have to print programs for every guest attending your ceremony. Okay. So the rule of thumb is 40% of your guest list. They share, have people share when they arrive, and you can have your ushers really control this. You also have guests that will only arrive for the reception. You got people arriving in groups and children and things like that. So you don't need as many wedding programs as you do your expected guests. And guests, they show up late or not on time, whatever the case may be, you just don't need as many. So if I have a client that has 125 confirmed guests for their wedding, and they're having a full ceremony and a reception to follow, I'm going to suggest that they print only 100. You don't need 125. They may not also need 100, but we're just going to give it 100 just to be safe, right? Because we know, they're not going to go through all those programs. So obviously that's not the 40%, but I'm just using that as a rule of thumb, as an example. You can even go with 80, programs if you're having 125. All right. So my professional recommendation is to create a wedding program that is uniquely yours, whether you have all of those, strings of events happening or not. It's okay to color outside the lines of a traditional wedding program and really just go with something different, inform your guests, and then have a keepsake all at the same time. So overall, wedding programs are a useful and thoughtful addition to any wedding ceremony. So providing guests with important information and memorable keepsake that shares for years to come, that's just a memory. It just makes everything just wonderful. It's actually one of my favorite stage pieces of stationery that I absolutely love to design and have printed for my clients on a day of. Believe it or not, I design and have printed, you know, a number of different types of stationery for weddings, and especially for the day of invitations. I've done countless, but the wedding programs is my absolute favorite, right next to the wedding menu. And I'll touch on that in a different topic. I do have a blog post on that. So, all right. So there is all of the information I wanted to provide regarding wedding programs. I appreciate you listening. And if you need a wedding program outline, just something to get you started, like a draft, I am offering a free program outline that you can download. You can download it here in this video. And if you don't see it there for some reason, you can always go to my blog and you can do a search there and you can find that downloadable outline that you can utilize. So you can help, this will help you determine if you're going to need a wedding program or not. You'll be able to see how much information you have and if it's worth conveying to your guests. But I think you'll find it to be really neat and unique to you. So thank you so much again, and I hope to see you next time. Take care.